Dear colleagues, good afternoon. Welcome to the panel People-to-People Dimension of China-CEEC Cooperation. I'm very honored and glad to be here and to moderate this panel. My name is Irina Ilieva. I'm professor in International Public Law and International Relations, and I'm director of the Institute for the State and the Law by the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. My institute, so the Institute for the State and the Law, is the only research organization in Bulgaria in the field of the legal sciences. I have the honor to welcome also my colleagues from the Institute to this session. Before to start, I would like to make some rules for the presentations, because we are starting a half hour later. We had also some technical problems, and because of this, the first in my list, Associate Professor Jianjun Tian from the Beijing Foreign Studies University will join tomorrow in the second part of this panel. You can join this presentation of Associate Professor Tian tomorrow. Before to start, I propose to have a limit of 15 minutes for your presentations, and if we finish in time, perhaps a little discussion, or we can have the discussion to the end of the second part of this panel today. And it's very important to know us, and I would like to give the floor first for a tour of the table. I give the micro for my colleagues for a short presentation to know who is who.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. It's further pleasure to thank the organizers and all of you who helped this event be successful. My name is Andrea Mihailovic. I'm PhD from University of Montenegro Law Faculty. My main field of interest is business law, but after I appointed that criminal law group of subjects, I developed my research interest in different directions, especially in terms of cybersecurity, cybercrime, cyber defense, and digital transition. That's for now, and we will, I hope, further discuss during presentation.
Hello, my name is Rosalia Leikov. I am founder of one innovative business model, 8INU. The model is living in 5 countries: Switzerland, Liechtenstein, China, and from 1 year in Bulgaria, even so Serbia. The 5 countries have already start in my model. I have to develop more 3 for my organization, and the sectors we will develop will be innovation and digital transformation. So that I am here in interest to present it in Bulgaria, the first blockchain, which will be decentralized, and will have one very special point for reserve golden fund, so that if you have more interest, you come back to me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Karolina Gawron-Tabor. I'm PhD from Toruń University in Poland. I concentrated in research of Central European countries cooperation, and saying Central European countries, I mean Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, and Slovakia, especially now in energy cooperation. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Zenepe Davku. I'm assistant professor at Agriculture University of Tirana in Albania, and also I'm a PhD student in France. My research topics is related, related to the evaluation of natural resources and to find optimal use of natural resources, especially in protected areas. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Visar Süley. I'm a PhD student at Shanxi Normal University in China. I am researching on communication features. The field of research is discourse analysis. I am also a project manager for different universities. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Vladimir Yordanov, and I am representing today our NGO based in Bulgaria, Education for Everyone, with my colleague Borjana. I'm myself an expert in partnerships and transnational education contracts between universities, and spent many years working for British universities, and now trying to help more the Bulgarian higher education sector to implement some of the things which I've learned myself in the past 10 years. And I'm very pleased to be here today and share some of my experience with you. Thank you.
So good afternoon everyone. I would like to express firstly my deepest gratitude for getting opportunity to be here today. My name is Ksenia Smolovic. I'm originally from Montenegro, but I have been living and studying in Hungary for the past 3 years as Hungarian scholarship holder. My topic is related to my specialization, which is media informatics, and it will be about creation of 3D digital study material and its origins, which are connected or associated with China and Singapore. And once again, thank you so much.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Sofia Todorova. I'm representing today the Bulgarian Agricultural Academy. I'm the patent attorney of the Academy and consultant in the field of intellectual property of the Academy concerning genetic resources or new plant varieties and animal breeds. Moreover, I'm Chief Assistant Professor in the University of National and World Economy in Bulgaria, also visiting professor here in Sofia University, also visiting professor in Côte d'Azur University in France, and I think that's it. And I have 3 kids.
Hello to everyone. My name is Goran Shebakovsky. I'm assistant professor of political science at University of St. Paul the Apostle in Ohrid in Macedonia. I have to say that I'm proudly Sofia University alumni because I got my all academic education at this university here. Today I'm going to present research that's in progress still. It's titled as a comparative analysis of the impact of China's cultural diplomacy in the Western Balkans. So I would like to thank the organizers for this invitation, the opportunity to be here, and I wish a successful conference to everyone. Thank you.
Hello dear friends, my name is Georgi Bakyov. This year I graduated at the Institute for the State and the Law at the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. I obtained a PhD in international law and international relations. Tomorrow I will present a comparative study about forest protection as a phenomenon in Bulgaria and China, and we will talk about some international dimensions of the topic. You could find my profile at LinkedIn, and I will be very grateful to make connections with you. Thank you. Good luck and have a nice conference.
Good afternoon. My name is Hristo Banov. I'm from Bulgaria. I have PhD of labor law and social insurance law. I'm a chief assistant professor of labor law and social insurance law at the Institute of the State and the Law, Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. I'm assistant professor at Southwest University, Neofit Rilski. I'm also a lawyer.
Hello from me. I'm Associated Professor Mariana Tien.
the same institute, the Institute for the State and the Law. My subject is international relations, especially Chinese studies. And the last.
So thank you. Welcome to the visitors also. If you want to present yourself, please, you have also this possibility. Yes or not? So we can start. First in my list, after the changes, of course, is our colleague Visar Sulay from Shanxi University. He will present a framing analysis of the COVID-19 Chinese vaccines in the Albanian online news media. Please, you have the floor.
Yes, if you could just confirm the name of the presentation. So yes. Yeah.
It should be. I already gave to the other yes. Oh, okay.
Somewhere up top. But it starts with Visor.
Yeah.
Okay. 1 second.
The presentation here. Yeah.
Okay. Conference presentation.
Yes. No. Another one.
Conference presentation.
Exactly.
Okay. 1 second.
You saved it, but where is it?
Yeah. I'll just open it. Yep. It's PowerPoint. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Professor Ilieva, for giving me the floor for my presentation of today. My name is Visar Sulay. I am a PhD student at the Shanxi Normal University in China, Xi'an, China. Yes, well, I'm very happy to be part of this conference today and to present my study on Chinese vaccines in the Albanian media. It has been already 2.5 years that the pandemic has started from December 2020, and it was declared from the World Health Organization that it is a pandemic and it was spread all over the world. So it has already had a devastating effect on the public health, economy, and every field of industry, has brought the world into its knees with far-reaching effects in many industries, and already have been already 600 millions of confirmed cases, and 6 million of deaths already, and a total of 12 billion vaccine doses all over the world have been delivered already. Well, yes, it is unparalleled outbreak, and the only thing that has released this problem, this global issue, was the vaccines. So it is a very important topic. It's already a topic that has been around for the past 1 year, and it is still going on in some countries, because many countries are still evaluating if the vaccines were effective, if the measures were more effective, etc. But, well, yes, it is a hot topic. So up to now we have 5 different, well, in 2021, from the start, there were 5 different companies that created the first vaccines and started to release to relieve the health crisis. It was the US Pfizer, Moderna, the Chinese Sinopharm, Sinovac, UK's AstraZeneca, Russia's Sputnik 5, India's Covaxin. Well, the global access to the vaccines was unequal. What does it mean? Lower income countries had no possibility to get access to the vaccines, and they had to rely to many producer countries. So this created a sort of dependency. This dependency contributed that the very fact of giving vaccines to lower income countries would be considered as a kind of influence from bigger countries. Well, yes, some scholars already have defined this kind of dependency as a sort of influence, calling it vaccine diplomacy. Well, if we argue that diplomacy, from a linguistic point of view, it has not a negative connotation. In fact, there has been the case of during the Cold War when US and Russia has cooperated to stop the epidemic of smallpox. So basically, at that time, it was spoken about vaccine diplomacy, and it was a positive meaning. So we should understand better why this time vaccine diplomacy was considered as a negative valence. So, what are the main reasons for this study? China has given to many countries the possibility to access to their vaccines. So that has created a sort of looking at China as a kind of influence by giving to certain countries the access to this. But according to what vaccine diplomacy is, it was a cooperation and a mutual benefit for the global health diplomacy, as some authors already have mentioned it and have already coined it. The China's donation and trading of low prices to the Belt and Road Initiative members was a form of nation branding. Nation branding in the sense that, yes, it is true that the vaccine was needed to stop the coronavirus spread, but it is also a sort of giving to a nation its image to the world, so that you understand that the producer country has a very good connotation in terms of technology and the possibility to produce the vaccines. And another motivation for this study was because Abbas 2021 has argued that by the Western media have covered any unfavorable information regarding the Chinese vaccines as a sort of kind of influence. So I have argued that in order to understand if this is true, we should do some country evaluation of the communication of the media in the countries to understand if this is true statement for any country. So, the vaccination process in Albania. It started from the ratification of the deal that was done with the COVAX program of World Health Organization, and first to be obtained were the AstraZeneca and Pfizer doses, but they were not sufficient for all the country. So the Prime Minister criticized the EU policy at that time because it left aside the Western Balkans of the other doses of vaccines. Well, it was a rush to get all the vaccines possible to normalize the crisis into the states. The Albanian government approved 4 vaccines. They were Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Sputnik, and Coronavac. And Albania passed the normative act to have access to 1 million doses of Chinese Sinovac. So let's understand how this was interpreted in the media. What is media framing? Well, this study is about media framing. Framing is a sort of selecting some aspects that are under the editorial policy of media and reflect the more salient aspects in a communication text. So how we can understand framing. Framing is a sort of pattern that the news make in order to express what they want to express within the reality of facts. So it is a sort of a polarized knowledge of the situation. The methodology used for this study is, well, I have collected the media articles about the Chinese vaccines in Albania. There are 890 articles, public ones, that are obtained from 4 different media, Shqiptaria.com, A2 CNN, Euronews Albania, and ABC News. The period of time that I selected all the articles is from January 2021 to August 2022. So this is a qualitative analysis, discourse analysis of framing devices that is used to uncover the latent meaning of the structures. So what are the main framings that are used in the Albanian media, and how do they reflect the fact about Chinese vaccines in Albania? So the research design is the following. There is a content analysis of the topic, information, and number of sources and genres, a framing analysis of the text, and a discourse analysis of the attitude towards Chinese vaccines and the type of argumentation around that. The media selected are 4, as I said, and the articles for Shqiptaria.com are 158, for Euronews 237, A2 CNN 286, ABC News 209. So basically these are all the articles that have been written on the Chinese vaccines in Albania, and there are very much. So, first of all, we should understand how this topic was covered in the media. From the analysis, it was so the analysis suggests that the international news were more relevant than the domestic ones, so that the topic on the vaccine news was more covered by international news, which means that the higher percentage of news was elaborated using other information or taking into consideration what has been done in other countries around the Chinese vaccines. The next table is about the articles that are divided by news, and it is singular to see that the news on the Balkan region have been more important regarding the Chinese vaccines in Albania, which means that Albania has looked to the Balkan region in order to express their opinion on the Chinese vaccines. So basically, these are the themes that this study has collected. The main frames were on Chinese vaccines, which means that it is a strong relation to China, which means that vaccines are associated with the country, and this makes it a strong point for the name, the country name branding. Also, vaccination's efficiency, and the fourth is also the premier of the country, which has been always promoting the vaccines, and medical doctors and experts have been arguing a lot about the vaccines on a positive way. Also the World Health Organization, and this, if you look closer to the last point, we see that collateral effects and geopolitics have been discussed so little that it has not made a point. Okay, it has not made a point on if vaccines were connected or not to geopolitics. The main frames, I go rapidly on this, that were produced from this study were China framed as a vaccine producer country, Chinese vaccines as a criticism to EU, Chinese vaccine framed as a positive image for China, effectiveness of Chinese vaccines framed positively, the premier as a savior for obtaining the vaccines, positive reactions to vaccine process, concerns on vaccinization, regional administration of Chinese vaccines framed positively, internal politics related to vaccinization. Travel and tourism was also a very big concern during 2021. So, in conclusion, the Albanian media followed the process regarding the Chinese vaccines following the pattern that was already in the region, and it positively framed the access to Chinese vaccines. Chinese vaccines were framed to ensure the public faith in using the vaccines and the condition to get mass immunization. China was portrayed favorably as both as a successful producer and a donor country, and also Chinese vaccines were related to criticism towards the EU. The findings show that the discourses were not related to geopolitics or any kind of criticism, but they were a kind of positive framing for giving the possibility to access to vaccines. Also, the skepticism was also framed positively, and the effects that the media showed positive responses of the experts, and one of the concerns that arose was the barrier to travel to EU countries, because there were some barriers of which vaccine should be allowed and which one was not allowed to get access to EU countries. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, dear colleague Silay, for this very interesting and hot topic. It's really very interesting success story for the Chinese vaccine diplomacy and how the Albanian media reflected this in very, very interesting analysis. So thank you so much. Next in my program is Andrea Mihajlovic from the Faculty of Law of University of Montenegro. Please, you have the floor for presenting the counterfeit and illegal pesticides at the most hazardous form of transnational environment crime, the case of Montenegro. Please, you have the floor.
May I bring my laptop because I want to emphasize one part? Okay. Good afternoon once again. To be completely honest, firstly, sorry because my voice, I have one terrible cold for more than 10 days. But I will do all the best to make a presentation not sound so worse like my voice. To be completely honest, this is one of my earlier works. It is written 2 years ago, but the topic is still very relevant because I wanted to emphasize the severe consequences of this form of environmental crime, which is really hazardous, dangerous, especially because of its consequences. And now I will start with my presentation. But first I want to, because like every lawyer thinks that everyone knows what is environmental crime. It is total amount of any criminal activities in terms of violations of provisions of laws of international and national agreements, which ensure the preservation and sustainability of biodiversity, world's environment or natural resources. From the aspect of motivation for this kind of criminal behavior, I must emphasize that this activities is high profitable. Environmental crime in terms of illegal activities it's one successful business due set of certain circumstances like mild penal policy, obstacles for prosecutions, for finding the preparators, as well as absence of constant norms and lack of expertise in terms of organizational units of law enforcement agencies. what makes this form of crime specific, particularly dangerous? That's by distribution and degree of organization of criminal groups in the chains, cross-border mobility, frequent links to the corruption and money laundering, low awareness of farmers about all the potential consequences they could raise from the misuse of untested pesticides, and limited control, and the fact that a large number of these kind of violations remain undetected at all. As the global need for increased food production has resulted in more intensive usage of chemicals in agriculture to provide higher yields. That's become big concern on a global scale from the beginning on 20th centuries, when the market faced a real explosion in the production of commercial synthetic pesticides. And it is soon started with invasion of illicit and counterfeit pesticides. According to United Nations International Crime and Justice Research Institute, the term illicit pesticide describes an array of illegal, obsolete, or banned substances, unauthorized imports, and counterfeit labeling for fake or inappropriate ingredients as applicable in the country of use. So, illicit pesticides are comprised of manufacture, import, and sales of 5 categories: obsolete or banned, non-authorized pesticides and substances, unauthorized pesticide imports, counterfeit or fake pesticide, or up-labeled pesticides, and refilled pesticide containers. Sorry about that. The spread of various environmental crime forms in the field of illicit pesticide trade, which endangers the public health and environment on warring scales. A series of threats, sorry, it's very difficult for me to speak right now. A serious threats to global security, to global economy, and food safety. The seriousness of the consequences, as we talk about, limited control options, high level of organizations, as well. It is supported by technological advancement, strong cross-border mobility. That's the one more problem in prosecuting terms, because it is much more complex to prosecute preparators, because they are often relocated on different locations. So it brings a need for mix 2 or more jurisdictions in different countries. Fast-growing expansion supported by development as well, and production and marketing of dangerous product. 2 contrasting words you can see on this picture: the parallel between authorized and counterfeit and illegal pesticides. In European Union, all imported pesticides needs to be authorized by European Commissions, and those licenses often it should be reviewed every 10 years. So counterfeit and illegal pesticides, they avoid any of these controls, so it can be very harmful. And one of the big dangers is because we cannot register all consequences in short term, because many of them came in long run. So it is quite unpredictable, especially when it comes to health and life, because we can accumulate those consequences in short term, so they can show their effects more years after intake. So all of this brings concern to European Commission and its body. So the biggest alarm that fueled the fear of the global community about the dimensions of the problem, about all this scope, was this action through the results of the joint action of the European Union Agency for Law Enforcement Cooperation, Europol, and European Anti-Fraud Office, OLAF, called Silver Axe, which represents a significant step forward against of mitigating fake and lethal pesticides. So you can see the comparative view of the results of it. Was started with Silver Axe first, then 2017 was Silver Axe second, and after that now it's Silver Axe 6, and you can see how the numbers are progressing, the number of participating countries from 7. The biggest amount was in 2021, 35, but now it's more countries involved. It's almost the same number. And you can see the confiscated amount. I suggest you, if you are interested in this topic, to go to the site, because you have illustrations of this confiscated amount, what is approximately size of, for example, it's one Olympic pool, it was 2017, or to cover half of Ireland in 2008, that amount of confiscated pesticides. So from 2019, you can see the individuals arrested, but it is a really small number of the people who are processed in this case. So as early 1992, many countries, through the adoption of Agenda 21st, and the chapter of 19 of UN Conference of Environment and Development, signed a Rotterdam Convention on prior consent of use of hazardous chemicals and pesticides in international trade. And Rotterdam Convention aims to contribute to the use of environmentally chemicals in friendly manner by facilitating the flow of information on their characteristics, taking care, maintaining, and sharing information of national import and export, as well as decision-making policies. You can see one of the earlier economic assessment of the cost of illegal pesticides, how they directly violates intellectual property rights, so it makes a significant implications on the global economy change. So you can see about it's estimated that cost of illegal pesticides for the global economy from in this time is estimated to almost 1.5 million of direct and almost 30 million of indirect damage for global economy. Legislation in most countries criminalize the production and marketing of counterfeit and illegal pesticides. Depending on the scope and intensity of the consequences on the environment, the undertaking activities and the characteristic of preparators, as well as the types of prescribed sanctions. There are two types of this crime: misdemeanors and criminal offenses. But according to experience in terms of prosecutions, firstly, to improve implementation of these provisions as well, we need a new redesign of environmental, as well in terms of policy and in terms of procedure. So that's for me. Sorry for this voice and thank you for attention. I hope that everything is okay.
Thank you very much for this effort and for the just-in-time presentation. Thank you so much. I think it was very interesting, especially for the lawyers, for the people doing with research in the field of international environmental law and international criminal law. This is a cross-cutting aspect, very, very interesting, and I fully agree with the difficulties to investigate and maybe also to convict all these persons. This is a huge problem of the transnational criminal crime, in fact. Thank you so much. Yes, please. Please. Next in the program is Assistant Professor Karolina Gawron-Tabor from Nicolaus Copernicus University in Torun, Poland. You have the floor for your presentation, Departure from Coal. Please, you have the floor. Sorry.
Thank you. We must wait. We don't know the password.
Just 1 second, please.
Okay.
So,
I put my stick here.
Yeah. This one? Yeah.
This one.
Just 1 second.
I have shorter version.
Yes, please.
That's great.
Generation, the second largest source of primary energy, and the largest source of energy-related CO2 emission. Reducing CO2 emission and moving away from coal is essential for countries that base their energy mix on this energy source, and this applies to China and Central European countries, especially Poland and Czech Republic. The aim of my presentation is to compare the Czech Republic's, Poland's and China plans for departing from coal. I'm going to do it by answering 3 questions. Why is coal important for these countries? When do they want to phase out coal? And how do they do it? and by showing examples of cooperation between China, Poland. Okay, thank you. Between China, Poland, the cooperation helps them to moving out from coal. China dominance of coal markets. China is the largest producer, consumer, and importer. Has no parallel with any other countries. You may wonder, can we compare China with 1.4 billion people with Poland, 40 million, and the Czech Republic, 10 million people? And if we take into account the data per capita, we can answer, yes, we can. On this slide, we have per capita energy consumption from coal for the first 2 decades of the 21st century, and we can notice that China, Czechia, and Poland consume more energy from coal comparing to world or European Union level. The same is with the coal production. So the Czechia, Poland, and China produce more than is world and European Union level. And the same is unfortunately with the per capita CO2 emission from coal for the first 2 decades of 21st century. China, Czechia, and Poland are much higher with this emission comparing to world level and European Union level. The first question is why these countries should move out from the coal. First of all, the coal is the most important energy sources from primary mix. You can see that in Czechia, more than 30% comes from coal. In Poland, it's more than 42% comes from coal, and from China, it's more than 54% of primary energy consumption comes from coal. And the same is with the electricity production. Czechia takes 40% of its electricity from coal. Poland, it's more than 63%. Yes, we have problem with that. And China is 62%. The second question was when do they want to move out from coal, when they want to gain carbon neutrality. So the Czech Republic in 2033, and it was stated now in January 2022 with the statement of the new Czech Republic government, conservative one. Peter Fiala is the prime minister now. Poland in 2049, and it wasn't stated in documents, but in the social contract that Polish government made with coal mine unions, and the People's Republic of China in 2016. And it was stated by President Xi Jinping in front of the UN General Assembly. And how do they want to move out from coal? It is stated in main documents. So in the Czech Republic, it's the state energy policy with the assessment from 2021 and from the National Energy and Climate Plan for the years 2021-2030. The second document is the requirement of EU energy union. So the same is in Poland. The same document, but not the same aims are in Poland. There was done some most critical action. The most important here is the strategic framework for economic and social restructuring restart program for the coal mining regions in the Czech Republic. You have the regions on map. The second is the closure of hard coal mines. It was connected more with the pandemic, not the governmental plans, but no lignite mines. Statement by Peter Fiala. Here we have three three important things that the nuclear energy and the decentralized renewable sources are going to be most important in energy mix. The new photovoltaic installation on the roofs and the natural gas as a transit sources. In the case of Poland, we have two documents as well, the National Energy Climate Plan, so that is required by EU, and the energy policy. Some actions was done as well. One is the social contract between government and the coal mining unions, and some plans to close the lignite mining in Bełchatów. As you know, lignite mining is the most destructive for the environment, not so much the black coal, but brown one. And in our plans, we have the energy policy 2040, but now after the Russian attack Ukraine, we have the update this plan in March 2022. What is here the most important? That we want to have gas-fired generation and to introducing nuclear generation. We don't have in Poland nuclear power plants. We are going to build it, and in the update, the government states about small modular reactors as well. In the China, we have two important statements. One about one I've told already. So it's about achieving carbon neutrality before 2016, and then we have the President Xi Jinping statement that China would no longer back foreign coal project abroad. And we have two documents that are connected with achieving carbon neutrality, so the working guidelines and the action plan. They are important, but even more important is the 5-year plan for a modern energy system. And here, unfortunately, there is no plans, no targets for a coal phase out. It is stated that very important is energy security for China, and coal plays here a supportive role. But they put attention to clean and efficient utilization of coal and reusable sources of energy. The last point was about Chinese investment in Poland and the Czech Republic. So in case of Poland, China cooperates with wind farms, and in the Czech Republic with solar plant. There is no plans for cooperating with China with the energy nuclear plants. Poland chose 2 days ago United States and Korea, and the Czech Republic, they still decide, but they agree that no China and no Russia. To summarize, elements that country emphasize are more or less the same. They want to, but the distribution of accents are different. They want reducing coal consumption, that's sure, but in different times. They want to replacing coal with alternative power sources, solar, mostly Czech Republic, wind, Poland, and hydroelectric, that's China. And of course, nuclear power in Polish case to be new reactors. And they put attention to increase energy efficiency as well. More you will have, you will read in my article. Thank you. Oh, I managed.
Thank Thank you so much for this comparative and very rich in data presentation. It's also a hot topic. We had this discussion during our common project at the Institute with our Chinese colleagues, and it's really very interesting. I think there will be interesting discussion to the end because the departure from coal in the situation of the war in Ukraine poses serious problems with the energy crisis, and maybe we will be back to coal and to other energy sources. Let's see. Thank you. And next is Assistant Professor Goran Shibakovsky, University St. Paul the Apostle in Ohrid. Please, comparative analysis of the impact of China's cultural diplomacy in the Western Balkans. Also very interesting theme. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I'm here to present my research which is in progress. Its title is Comparative Analysis of the Impact of China's Cultural Diplomacy in the Western Balkans. So I hope it will be interesting for you, and can change here. So the goal of this comparative analysis is to discover the similarities and the differences of the impact of the China's cultural diplomacy in the Western Balkans. Part of the Western Balkans are the 6 countries: Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, Serbia, Macedonia, and Kosovo. So the Western Balkans is a kind of a political neoliberalism for this part of the Balkans Peninsula, the group of countries that aims to join the EU in the future. Also the Western Balkan countries are part of the initiative 16+1 that promotes business development and investments between these states and the People's Republic of China. So only Kosovo is not part of this initiative, and here is a key tool of the Chinese cultural diplomacy in this part of this region are the Confucius Institutes network in the Western Balkans. So the cultural diplomacy sometimes is doing better work than the political diplomacy, and it's defined as a kind of soft power or that exchange of culture and cultural communication between the people of different states. So the methodology that I'm going to use in this research is mainly comparative, because there are 6 countries, and the influence of the cultural diplomacy and the impact in these countries. There is the first step is the online monitoring of the web portals, and of course of the social media activities that are part of the web portals of the Confucius Institutes in the Western Balkans countries. And also there is a survey which is in progress. It's a structured online questionnaire sent to the Confucius Institute network in the Western Balkans with 2 main questions. Of course, it's expanded questionnaire, but the 2 main questions are: what are the Confucius Institutes do to promote Chinese language and culture education in the Western Balkans? Of course, we can guess that they organize different cultural activities, but we'll see the results when this research will be published. The second main question is what are the opportunities and of course challenges that these institutes they face in promoting Chinese culture and language in these countries. Some of the preliminary investigation, you can see on this map of the Western Balkans that there are Confucius Institutes are located at the universities mainly in the capital, but also there are other institutes established at the universities in the Western Balkan countries. So in Macedonia it's located University of Skopje, in Albania it's University of Tirana, Montenegro University, also in Serbia, there are two. The one in Belgrade, that also it is the same time the Cultural Institute and Chinese Cultural Center. The other one is located in the University of Novi Sad in Bosnia. There are also two, University of Sarajevo and University of Banja Luka, and there is no Confucius Institute in Kosovo so far. So from the preliminary investigation, there is interesting to, of course, the mission and objectives of the Confucius Institute are to promote Chinese language and culture, but the spectrum of the activities is, let's say, similar but also different. For example, in Macedonia, there are Chinese language courses offered, and but also they have Chinese courses offered successfully in more than 10 government ministries and states. So this is something that I didn't find at some other countries in the Western Balkans. Mainly, for example, all the institutes are founded between 2013, 2017, 18 in Montenegro. And of course, they are founded in supported and in cooperation with the partner university in China. So different countries, for example, in Macedonia, Albania are the same year, 2013. In Montenegro, 2015. The oldest one is in Serbia, 2006. Another one is 2014 in the University of Novi Sad and University of Banja Luka, for example, 2018. So this was very interesting because there's one, how to say, in the last, can say, around 10 years, some activities before the pandemic, of course. And during the pandemic, I found that they have also Confucius Institutes, they have some of them, they offered a kind of online activities about teaching Chinese language, and for some I didn't found any information. So I expect more of the data to be collected from the online survey that I will hope to have completed before the deadline to send for the publication. And something very interesting that I started, it was I was interested how many of the Chinese literature is actually translated in the Western Balkan countries from the originally translated from Chinese language into the national or domestic language. And I got this information from the COBIS system, which is the Cooperative Online Bibliographic Systems and Services. So I believe that you use this system to search for literature review and to see what kind of literature is there. So from the investigation, I found that most of the Chinese literature is translated, for example, in Serbia, which has impacted this culture of diplomacy a lot, and they have, can say, a tradition in the good relations with People's Republic of China. And also you can see that from, let's say, when the most of the Confucius Institutes were established, there is a growing interest in the Chinese literature to be translated in the Western Balkans. So this is a kind of additional data to this research, and conclusions that I believe are not final until now. The preliminary findings show different impacts on the Chinese cultural diplomacy in the Western Balkans. Important too, as I said, it is Confucius Institute's network in the Western Balkans. There's intensive cultural activity in the last 10 years. roughly, and of course the most developed relations, not only politically but also culturally, is with Serbia, and there are no activities found from the investigation in Kosovo, which is part of the Western Balkan countries. So your questions and suggestions are welcome in the context of the quality improvement of my research, and if you have any additional recommendations, of course you can contact me on my email. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, colleague Shibakovsky. I really regret that our colleague Professor Tien is not here online to connect us because he was director of the Confucius Institute here in Sofia in Bulgaria. But I hope he will contribute to your research, and it's very interesting. The COBIS findings for me were absolutely interesting per countries and also per rates. So thank you so much. I propose you a little change in the program. Next is my presentation. I propose you to present my PowerPoint to the end in order to have time for the other participants and speakers. I don't know personally Professor Irina Tsakova. Is she here present? I'm so sorry, I don't know her personally. Is Professor Tsakova here? Maybe not. So in this case, the next is Assistant Professor Silvia Todorova from the Agricultural Academy. She have to present a common presentation, research and analysis of international patent activity in the field of green technology. Very interesting topic. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you. I have the very same issue like Andrea. Sorry about this, but mine is like all month long, so don't worry, you have 20 more days to recover. Oh, very nice. Yes, yes. It's very, yes, this issue is very connected to economic and law as well. So it's interesting one, I guess. So the topic concerned the research and analysis of international patent activity in the field of green technology. As we all know, it's a very hot topic, the green technology, the biodiversity now. So the green technology, we know that it's a term that describes the use of technology and science that reduce the impact on the human, on natural environment. And the subject matter of this article is exactly the green technology and its protection as industrial property, namely as patent, as inventions, because green technologies could be also protected as trademarks, as industrial designs, as utility models. However, the topic concerns only inventions for patent for inventions. As we know, the area of technology could be, of green technology, is very broad. It could be found everywhere in the industry. However, the article is focused on green technology in agriculture, namely in Class A in the International Patent Classification, which is the human necessities, and more specifically in agriculture as food or food products. We know it's a very hot topic now. The food products that could be bio, could be eco products, also coffee, tea, and their substances, and the manufacture of these products. A few words about inventions, just to mention that all the novelties could be protected as inventions if they cover some criteria like novelty, like industrial applicability. And the legal protection over these inventions is granted for 20 years from the date of application with a patent. that could be valid for just one particular country or for a region or for the European Union or somewhere else, like third parties. Once issued, the holder receives exclusive right to use the invention, so it's very important the green technologies, all the inventions in the green technologies to be patented. So we have the right to use the invention, to prohibit others to use it, or just to license the invention to third parties and to have benefit from this. The purpose of the patent search is to establish the applications for inventions filed and also patent granted for inventions. Here I have to mention that we can patent for an invention. The procedure is like 3-4 years, sometimes even 5 years. So it's a long-term procedure. The countries surveyed here are mainly Bulgaria, China, the USA, South Korea, and some PCT applications. These are the international applications for inventions filed with the international, with the World Intellectual Property Organization, and the European Patent application filed with the European Patent Office. Why these countries? Because when I searched first, these were the top countries. Yes, I searched like 16,000 patents, and these are the top countries that I have surveyed. So the depth is 20 years because, as I mentioned, the invention is valid for 20 years. After that, it could be used from everyone. Databases, you can find all these patents on the relevant databases. The first one is the Bulgarian patent database. The second one is the European Patent Office, WIPO, as I mentioned, and one very broad database that contains access to more than 100 million patent documents in over 95 jurisdictions. So it takes long time for this survey because you have to cover all these databases. And as I mentioned, these are the total applications and patent granted in the field after a selection I have made from this 16,000 I have mentioned. So total of 954 applications, about 90% comes from China, then South Korea, USA, WIPO, EPO, and we don't have here in Bulgaria so far. However, I have to mention something very important, that in this search we do not cover the last 18 months because the application for invention is when it's filed, it is public, it is published after 18 months. So we cannot cover applications which are very, very new because they're still secret applications. We can see that after 2014 up to 2019, we have a high demand of applications, and these are the applications published. So we have like 7-8 years with really high degree of inventions in the field of green technology. Of course, not every, I don't think, okay, you can see over there because here it's not very clear. Of course, we have a lot of publications, a lot of applications, but about 5 up to 10% of the applications for patents are granted. So it's not very easy to patent invention, about 5–10% of the applications. And after that, about 3 to 5% of these applications go to the public. I mean, yes, we can use it, we can see it. So the invention is very complicated object in the field of intellectual property. We have some top applicants here. It's complicated for me to read in these Chinese names, yes, but they are coming from China. And we have one applicant, which is the University of Cornell. So mainly these are companies and physical persons. I have some examples here. Probably this one are from China, but here you can see better. Some examples like method for extracting crude palm oil using green technology, also green rising technology for domestic pig. You can see different fields here concerning the green technologies. Treatment of growing trees or plants for preventing decay of foods, green chemical technology for producing fluoride, green technology for cross-linking molecules for various uses, and green non-pollution synthetic technology for garlic oil. So we have a lot of different fields only in the field of agriculture. Fertilizers are now also very popular in the field of green technology and in the field of protectionist inventions. As a conclusion, some of my thoughts, the conclusion could be very, very broad. I think that in the future, the green technology will find even greater application, because now we see that it's growing, but it's not very stable in the field of patents. Patent solutions should be, as I mentioned, they should be protected. All of these green technologies should be protected as patents in order to have the value after that of these inventions, and to protect from infringements from third parties. And thank you so much for the attention. If you have any questions, you can always contact me. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. It's very interesting personally for me. I'm not specialist in patent law and protection, but the green technologies are really something exciting and new. So I think there will be interesting discussion on your presentation. And to ask, allow me to present my topic. I tried in my paper to focus on another problem. You are well informed how is the initiative China-CEEC installed and how is the last development of this initiative. The main problem from the point of view of the European Union is that nowadays 8 of the countries involved are member states of the European Union and are part of the internal market and of the common policies, including the common trade policy. On the legal level, we are witnesses of the interrelations between the European Union supranational regulation and the multilateral and bilateral relationship established with China. My paper will focus on these cross-cutting aspects of the Chinese initiative and selected area of the European Union law, especially the common trade policy and the economic cooperation. And I put, first of all, some figures about the EU-China trade in order to have this point why I choose the common trade policy. You have this data. That means that approximately 1.3 billion per day of import and 600 million per day of export the turnover between the European Union and China. And what is about the legal basis? The background, diplomatic relations between European Union and China were established in 1975. And from the Chinese point of view and research, of course, this event coincides with the so-called diplomacy for peaceful coexistence. This is the period 1949-1979. Based on the so-called 5 principles of a peaceful coexistence to state-to-state relations and in the world, China normalized its relations with Japan in 1972 and with USA in 1979. The establishment of diplomatic relations with the EU, the European communities in this time, in 1975, is in line with the China's foreign policy of peace. From the European Economic Community at this time, the establishment of the diplomatic relation was in fact a support for China's economic opening launched in 1978 by Deng Xiaoping. This approach resulted in the swiftly expanding trade and investment relationship. Given that at the beginning of Deng's reforms, China was very poor, and the European Economic Community de facto agreed to an arrangement for special and differentiated treatment linked to China's status of a developing country. And the relation still now, are governed by the EU-China Trade and Cooperation Agreement. You have on the slide the full name, Agreement on Trade and Economic Cooperation, signed in Brussels on 21 of May 1985. This agreement is still in force. And the key disposition is the clause of the most favored nation. In the areas covered by the agreement, you have this area on the slide. Custom duties and charges of all kinds applied in the import, export, re-export or transit of products, including the procedure for the collection of such duties or charges, regulations, procedures and formalities concerning custom, clearance, transit, warehousing and transshipment of products imported or exported, taxes or other internal charges, etc., etc. This is the full list of the area covered by the clause of the most favored nation. Should an obvious imbalance arise, the matter must be examined within the joint committee so that measures can be recommended in order to improve the situation. I shall jump the information about the joint committee. And in order to attain the objectives of this agreement, the European Union and China shall endeavor to facilitate and promote different activities also listed in this agreement, joint production and joint ventures, common exploitation, the transfer of technology, cooperation between financial institutions, visits, contacts and activities between individuals, people-to-people contacts, delegation, etc., etc., organizations of seminar and symposia, consultancy, technical assistance, including training of staff and other. So the bilateralism is expressly pointed out in this agreement, especially in the economic cooperation part of this agreement. And the bilateralism will be implemented without prejudice to the relevant provision of the treaties establishing the European communities. Thus the door was open for the member states to conduct bilateral economic cooperation and sign bilateral agreements with China according to the national interests and economic priorities. From the legal point of view, from the legal basis, the bilateralism embodied in these bilateral relations between China and countries of Central and Eastern Europe are fully in line with the European Union treaties, of course, without prejudice to the common trade policy. The intensity of the bilateral relations of the CEE countries with China is different according to the changes of the political environment, of the dynamic of the global, regional and sub-regional system of the international relations, as well the political, economic and societal situation in each involved in the initiative country. And this paper, my paper, is not aimed at analyzing the causes for the reservations or exit of some countries from the initiative. But we cannot ignore this process of withdrawal of the dissatisfied countries. And this process, of course, is determined by the internal political, economic and other situation in each country. This is now the field of economic cooperation, also listed in this trade and cooperation agreement. So you can see that the field of agriculture, including agro-industry, is in the priorities of the cooperation. We have also industry and mining, science and technology, energy, transport and communication, environmental protection, as well cooperation inter-countries. That was also some of the topics of the presentations today. Relative new is the EU-China Comprehensive Agreement on Investment. This is an interesting instrument. So in my paper, I pointed out the former legal basis for this, for the investments. The legal basis is indeed in the former agreement. But now we have a new development. The EU-China Investment Agreement is central for the European Union's long-term bilateral relations with China. Negotiations for this agreement began in 2013. The Council authorized the Commission, the European Commission, to initiate negotiations for this comprehensive investment agreement, and the negotiations started formally on the EU-China summit on 21 November 2013 in Beijing. The main goal was to create a new investment opportunities for European companies by opening China's market and eliminating discriminatory laws and practices, as well to replace the 26 existing bilateral investment treaties between the 27 member states and China by one single comprehensive investment agreement. This agreement is a huge document, terrible to present in so short time. What is the main content of this agreement? It is not in force, so it's to come maybe. The most important commitments cover state-owned enterprises, transparency of subsidies, and rules against forced technology transfer. The rules negotiated in this agreement set a high benchmarking in terms of transparency, a level playing field, market access commitment, and sustainable development. And to the end, it's very important, provisions on sustainable development, including commitment on climate and forced labor. So the multilateralism on this subject matter can be found in the China's accession to the World Trade Organization in 2001. When China joined WTO in 2001, China agreed to reform and to liberalize significant part of its economy. China has made progress and continues to liberalize various non-sensitive industries, but problems remain. This is the lack of transparency, industrial policies, discrimination against foreign companies, etc., etc. About the people-to-people dimension, I shall jump this, but I find that the people-to-people dimension suffered enormous because of the COVID pandemic in the last years. Next, I put some case, but it's, I think, a well-known situation with the EU-China solar panel dispute in 2013. Maybe just to mention the last cases, and this is the huge problem for the countries in the initiative, member states of the European Union. The last cases are from 24 March this year, when the European Commission imposed definitive anti-dumping duties on the import of calcium silicon originating in China. And an investigation from the Chinese, from the Commission about the Chinese imports, and the result was that these imports are being substantially dumped. So the Commission imposed duties ranking between 21.5% and 50.7% on import of calcium silicon from China. And the next, from the 7 April is relatively the same case. The European Commission has imposed anti-dumping duties on imports of graphite electrodes from China. These measures follow an investigation which showed that Chinese graphite electrodes were being sold in the European Union at significantly dumped prices. And EU producers of graphite electrodes were unable to compete with such prices and suffered injury as a result. Graphite electrodes are used in steel production and are an essential component for the world's recycling industry, since they are the only product that can conduct the power and withstand the heat necessary to melt scrap metal. And here the anti-dumping duties on graphite electrodes from China have been set at between 25.5% and 74.9%. So this is the problem with the common trade policy of the member states of the European Union, member of this initiative. What is next? The last EU-China high-level economic and trade dialogue took place on 19 July this year, and there was a substantive dialogue about some issues. I put on the slide not all issues. The first one was the world economic outlook, the second, the participation and the outcomes of the 12th Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization. And in that context, the European Union here and China agreed to work jointly in the World Trade Organization and the reform of the World Trade Organization. Very important was the discussion about the prevention of supply chain disruption because of the war in Ukraine, and EU and China discussed this problem and exchanged information of the supply of certain critical raw materials and other products. There was exchange on financial services, relatively constructive, on the business environment of the managing of the COVID-19 pandemic. So the dialogue is in progress. What comes next, I cannot see now and predict what will be the next step in the EU-Chinese relations. So we are in suspense here, and I thank you for your attention. So we have now a coffee break, but if you want to start the discussion during the coffee, it will be great. And maybe to make discussion to the end of the second part of the panel, if you agree. I see consensus on the question. So what time? We have 50 minutes coffee break. No, till 4 p.m. Till 4 p.m. Generous. Yes. Аз ги разместих. Значи, първо ние нямахме техническа възможност доцент Чиянов от Китай да се включи първия тук в списъка. Да, защото се оказа, че няма техническа. Значи това ще остане за утре, когато ще има тази техническа възможност. Значи, и останалите сме ги, значи нямаше Елизабет Йонева има днеска лекции и утре ще се включи в панела. Ирина Цакова не познавам, нямаше залата и съм прескочила. Тези двете са в авторство и Силвия Тодорова представи. Така, от тия тук вашите, Цветан Давидков не съм го виждала от години. Да не го позная.
Вие ще водите да внесе писмата.
Да.
Цветан Давидков.
Вие се познаваме много години, ама не се разпознаваме.
Не сме се виждали
сигурно 100 години, да.
Ето това е от мен и от доцент Надя Соколова. Тя ще го представи.
Добре. Я да се запишем направо, защото само едно име е написано.
Така, това ще го представи доцент Надя Соколова.
Вие сте са автори.
Ние сме са автори, ще го представи доцент Надя Соколова. Така, следващото не сме ние.
Тя е тук за НП, тук е там някъде, къде беше.
Следващото е от Албена Вуцова и мен Цветан Давидков. Албена отсъства, ще го представи Цветан Давидков.
Добре. Това е Албена Вуцова, дето беше в МОН. И нея не се вижда 100 години. Ще поздравиш, като я видиш.
Не знам, нужно ли е да предупреждавам, аз ще го самостоятелно.
Тук съм аз вече, ще го представя аз.
Това вече е самата тя.
Ами ще поя след това
тези са тук също. Ксения Смолович, някъде там беше така. Аз малко вече съм много зла с физиономите. Все се хваля, че съм добър физиомист, но в последно време се излагам. И Владимир Йорданов.
Много хора виждаме.
Така че да.
Искате ли да качим презентациите, за да не губим време после?
Като ги изпратихме, не са ли качени да ги дадем?
Да ги има тук, я ги
проверете.
Добре.
Аз просто, просто не знам техническите. Щом сте ги изпратили, значи би трябвало да са тук.
Да.
Щом сте ги пратили, значи са тук.
Ама все пак
първата трябва да е на Давид Надя Соколова.
Само една секунда, защото ние това не ще да...
Ето, ако искате тук, заповядайте, аз.
Няма проблем, той се така се нарича кофе брейк, но ясно си я следва.
Ето тази, ето
Да, това е първата.
И тук вдясно в което.
След това тук не знаем на тази дама, която е втора. Вземете. Да.
Аз се свалих.
Добре. Сега третата пише Давидко Гуцова или Гуцова Давидко. Ето тази. Аз ще я представя.
Само да видя, първата е вашата, нали?
Тя ще е Соколова.
Втората е за него. Да ги номерирам за една.
Така, сега търсим Давидко Гуцова.
Това е дам, който...
Албена Цецо. Ендо?
Тази
да. Това е трета.
Това е трета. Аз съм подказал нататък, да. Няма проблем.
Това е супер. Трябва да има другата папка. 3.
Да, след това 4 имам...
Аз имам програмата.
Да, след това трябва да е...
4 Ксения. Добре. Смолович, някъде тук е гледа. Ето е.
Да.
Само едното е прибило и да те диджитал стъди, това трябва да е значи.
Да, така защото е PowerPoint или в PDF.
PowerPoint.
Да.
Това е четвърти,
след което...
Какво направи? Четвъртата, след това е Надя Соколова. Добре.
Мисля, че най-днето определението.
Да, тя...
Тук е с авторство, другата е самостоятелно, но и двете аз ще ги представя.
И две ще ги представите вие.
Колегата ще си представи тази на Албена.
Не, това не е проблем. Чуди се дали... Да не са една са друга. Няма да е по-лесно, ама професор Илиева може да каже.
Да, разбира се, за мен не е проблем.
Кое ще е по-добре? Да, и аз се замислих да ставате два пъти.
Да, просто няма значение.
Добре, ще видим сега презентацията. Соколова.
Да, къде беше? Това е най-лесто минутко.
Ето е.
Да.
Не, тази е същата.
Ето тук, презентейш, ето тук.
Agricultural Automation.
Не, другата отгоре.
Това.
Да.
Велинова къде?
Да, защото съм с две имена в тирета и...
Супер. Айде
Dear colleagues, distinguished participants, we can now continue with the next session of our section, which will be dedicated to the cooperation between China and the countries of Central and Eastern Europe in the field of education and culture. So let us invite the first speaker, Associate Professor Nadia Sokolova, and she will present to us the topic of culture, of education and training, comparison between 16 and 1 initiative countries, which is common work with Professor Cvetan Davidkov. So please.
Thank you. First, I want to thank you for the participation in this interesting conference, because I and my colleague Professor Davidkov, we have to prepare the analysis about the importance of the culture of education of trading, and we have to write the initiative country about 16+1. First of all, I have to few words about the introduction, because we have to, according to us, the connection between educational and cultural is very important problem, because we have today we live in the internationalization, because we have in our faculty, in our university, come back many students about our country, and we have to very interesting to analyze and understand what is the connection between culture and education. The reason and the purpose of our research paper, because we have to write of this information, because the connection between culture and education now is the connection, because the different traditions have produced specified teaching practice, and the purpose of education is connected to inform the individual about the influence of culture and how this culture influence about the education and trading in the today world. We have to four main pillars, because we have to basically for education is to for all-round development of the person, and we have for people we have to understand, study to know, learn to go, educated to life together, study to be. We have analyzed these factors, because we have to about the connection between culture and education. Our research was prepared to compare and analyze. We use the Hofstadter approach, because we have to use your ratio, analyze to characterization of the culture, based on the assumption the people belong to a cultural code, because we have compared how they solve the question in the opportunity to understand the difference between different culture. According to this Hofstadter approach, different culture measures are used for, we have to analyze the degree of the development of the culture, and we have to this connection, we have to use two basic ratio and two basic metrics. One of this is the power distance, and the other is the individualism, because we have to present these two indicators, because we have influence about the educational and culture. We have to present this side and the next side the measure about the value of index by the country of initiative 16+1, and we have to analyze this this ratio, and according to this ratio, in this we have to the first column is the country, the second column is the index about the power distance, and the third column is the index about we have to measure the individualism, and after this country, because we have the information about in this country with the initiative, and we have compared by this information, and according these indicators we have to need for review the benchmarks. Is the benchmark with concerning such a reference can be average value of given index for the country. And according to these measures, according to the calculated indicators, we have to calculate, we have to conclude, and very important information, because the compare and influence culture and education. And this, the first indicator, because we have indicator power distance, we have to analyze the parametry of low power index and high power index, and with this table we have summarized the basically concluding, because we have to need about the analyze. Very interesting concluding. We've connected because the country we have to low power distance, we have see that students value independence and students are associated power and wealth with positive things. And the other side, in the high performance, high power distance, we have to students value conformity and students associated power and wealth with negative things, because we have two opposite parameters, because we have analyzed about of this. And the others information, because which connecting of the teachers, because the index with low powers distance, because teacher treats students as equal, and is the country because we have to high power distance, students depend on teachers, because we have to strongly connection between teachers and students, and we have to not independence according to the country with low power distance. And the other interesting point of our analysis is that country we have low power distance, we have two part of communication in the class is initiative by student, and the opposite with the country we have high power distance, communication in the country is appropriated by according to the teacher. And we have information about the quality of learnings, because we have in the country low power distance, we have good communication between teachers and students, and we have to high statement achievement, and the less education share more auto-return values. And with the country we have the high powers distance, the quality of learning depends for the excellence of teachers, and both low and high educated share authorization value, because it's very interesting indicator, because we have to analyze the kind of education, the method of education, and we have to prepare by the next step. The last interesting point about the index of power distance, we have to connection with this, the focus is middle school students, because in the country low power distance, and the country with high power distance with the center of the attention are to excellence 1. For what is the information about of the next index, because we have to use for our analyze, is the individual index, because we have the country love values of individualism, we have to students like depth in life, we have to stronger community, harmony, because we've connected by the education, but with the countries we have to high values of individualism, we have to confirmation is normal, joint life appeals for the students and different for the different country. The next interesting point about this evaluation, which connected because is the low value of this index, teacher works with students as a group, and the other opposite side, before we had to hide the value of individualism, teacher work with individual student, and because we have to the high values of this index, students enter into relationship basis on current tasks and needs of the moment, and the others we have to work in the group, because in the country we have to low values individualism, we have preferred to students and teachers work in the group and we've discussed of together, but the opposite side we have to the individualism, and we have to only students with work in the one kind, and the teacher we have to work in the other kind. The next interesting conclusion that we have about this analysis, because we have to connect it by the index of low values, we've connected about the students are relocated speak from in front of the class in the large group, and the opposite we have to the in front of the class or in middle and large group. And in this demonstration of self-respect of the students is very positive, but the country we have to the index of high values, because we have two students expected to be represented as individuals, and the opposite because we have to use the harmony, faith, shame, because we have to use the education. The next conclusion, because we have to the index, we have to low values, we've connected the purpose of education is learn how to do it, but we have to one of the question about one of your 4 pillars, because we're starting the research and the presentation. And the next, because we have to use the high values, the purpose of education is learn how to learn, because it's very interesting and for the development of educational and the culture. According to the basis of the indexes, we have to the connection between educational culture. We've taken it of 3 basically points. One is the psychological, the others is the behavioral, because we have changes in action and prepare for the student and the teacher, and the third point in the conventional, because we have the connection between culture and education. After this, according to our indexes, because we have to develop our process using the COPS 4 types of the learning, because in the research of this problem, because of the difference and connection between educational and culture, because we have to use, we point which connection, but reflection observation and active observation, because we have to develop a learning cycle, because you used a new digital method for use in our teaching, and you have to write for each parameters you're strengthening and to make a model of solving problems, because we have to learn our student. According to our analysis, because the indexes that you receive, we have prepared the effective process of training in the process about the 6 steps, because we have to prepare the algorithm, because we use 2 presentation about our student. The first step is connection, because the learner use observation. The next step, we have to use the knowledge, information, models, territory, because we have to answer the question why to know, how to know. The third step is the respect about the culture in nature of learning. The steps 4, we have connected that the learner may easy and accessible. Step 5, we've connected that the teacher is not really teacher but the mentor, because we help the student and how to teach and how to learn in this. And the next 6 steps we've connected with the assess student performance based on the learning, and we have to command the access about the student and the teacher. About of this, we have 4 different steps, and we have to analyze about of this our research, because one is the culture of teaching if learning, because we challengers, organization culture of the university, depends of relationship between teacher structure and organizational culture, and influence of school leadership or organizational structure. According to our research, we have to use the experience for China, because we have to use this educational system, but connected with the teaching people to necessary skills, and traditional Chinese culture, we have to enhance the person's worth, knowledge, and skills. And in modern times, we have to increase interest and more inverter students in this graduated receive these trends, because we have to strongly connection between education and culture. And according to our research, we have 3 mainly conclusions point. One is this that education might respect with culture identific for environmental, and we have to according to education system. The second is the training is based on practical activity, take into account in the important social, culture, and economic use for the learners, and it is necessary to transport knowledge for history, tradition, language, and culture, because it's the basically conclusion that the culture as education our trending is very strongly, and we used to prepare to use the innovate method for our training. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Sokolova, for your really interesting presentation about the influence of culture on education, and even on broader basis on economic practices, that we have to understand the cultural code of different communities and take into consideration different factors in order to achieve effective learning process based on cultural characteristics. So we have one more presentation by Professor Sokolova, and it is on the topic of distance learning and student mobility challenges. Please.
Thank you very much. Okay, after that I have to present my presentation connection with the distance learning and student mobility changes, because we have to, according to the COVID-15 the crisis in the education, because the distance learning is very important for our student, and is the purpose of my study. We've connected with the present to you the challenges of distance learning of student mobility, because we have to e-learning at today, we have to the current difficulties for the students and create exciting educational opportunities opening for the youngs and the other teacher. What is the reason for my research in this connection? Because we have to, one of the goals of the Bologna process is ongoing to educational reform of the European to increase mobility of students, teachers, and research, because we have to, the other point of the connection between culture of education, because we have to exchange the view of the point of teacher, the view of point of the other students, because the different country, different students, we have to a different way to study, and this one in the one is the research for my account, my presentation, and the other because I have to as of 2020 in our faculty of Economic of Business Administration in Sofia University, because it's very development, and we have to the student about 63 different countries, because we use in our bachelor and master programs, because we have you see in the third bullet, because we have to the students for the 29 country, and the different culture, different interesting about this, and this year we have progress about this, because we have only for this academic year we have total of 51 foreign students, because we have to, one is this the mobility for the Erasmus Plus, but the others we have to personally attach and application in our program, because it's the reason for our development about this study. Because in this connection, I have to write the importance for the e-learning process, because it's the process become the many important in the 21st century, because we have to work, because we live in the globalization world, because we have to use about the distance learning, and we have to by the digital area, because we have very important to development e-learning. What is the importance of student mobility? Because we have to become a high priority for internalization. In the others world, students is often seen as the face in internalization, and is not surprised that sometimes in interchange about of this, and the problem of mobility is the great importance for the academics to gain recognition, career plan, motivation, and we have to use the innovation information because we use in our institution, because I preparing my presentation and research, I have see the information about the Institute of International Education, because we have the information that in 2020, because according to the COVID-19 crisis, we have too many less mobility in the country, because we have to in this result is the students for China, because we have before crisis we have to 831, but we have to the restriction and we have the less the number about of this. What is the information about the factors of international students' mobility? I have to analyze five points accounting in this, and economic issue, social issue, health issue, educational and equalization process. And after that we have to, the main changes in student mobility after the higher education after COVID, because we have to decrease this mobility, because it's the problem for the traveling and restriction for the other country, and we have that about, according of this, we have to increase the online education, increase the online mobility and e-learning, because we have to increase the use about of teachers, the hybrid models, because we have to prepare your lecture of the online. For challenges the students' mobility in Bulgaria, I have to prepare one circle point, because we have to different about the students, employers, because the social crisis, creditors, and because we have to, according to me, every high educational program, because we have to strategy for strengthening the mobility of students, and we have to write the problem with the language barriers and social segmentation according to the according to different students. And after my analysis about this problem, I have to write the conclusion remarks that the rising of international students' mobility and exchange programs and internship in higher education now decrease rapidly during the pandemic, and today the management of higher education institutes is work about how to prepare action plan, how to develop your models, your programs to apply different students in the to increase the student mobility once again. University will continue to creative and innovative education in the future by combining different program and different type of education. According to me, student mobility is the very important factor for the development of higher education now in the world. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you once again, Professor Sokolova, for your insightful talk. Indeed, e-learning has become extremely important in recent times, and the problems of students and teachers' mobility connected with the new challenges are really topics that need to be discussed and developed. So now it is my pleasure to welcome Professor Zenepe Davku from the Agricultural University in Tirana to talk about education and ecotourism in Albania. Thank you.
Hello again, everyone. Today I'm going to present to you the importance of education for the preservation and promotion of ecotourism, values of the Šebenik-Jablanic National Park in Albania. We are still working on this work, so we will appreciate any suggestion or any remarks from you. So, the context of the research, we know that protected areas, first of all, that are created for to protect the biodiversity, but not just that, to offer such as ecosystem services, culture, regulating services, provisioning, and supporting. So, related to the European Union Commission, according to the Biodiversity Strategy 2013, they emphasize and promote the activities that are environmentally friendly. Especially after the COVID-19, there are a lot of startups and funds and projects to give the importance to the green activities. Related to the Albanian, in Albania we have 18.85% of protected areas. They are part of strategic policies for environmental protection. Also, they are part of climate change strategies. They are part of circular economy policy, bioeconomy, and of course, a better balance between nature and people with the motto, protected areas for nature and people. Even though they have the importance, they have a lot of problems. We choose the ecotourism as part of sustainable development of the park. Ecotourism, even though they have some studies that shows that ecotourism has some impact, negative impacts in the environmental, we have also benefits, positive benefits in social, economic, and environmental dimension. But to have the ecotourism successful and to give the result in sustainable development of the park, we need the local community and stakeholder engagement. First of all, we need to identify the local community and stakeholders, their role and level of participation. For second, involvement methods, their motivation for participation in this process and preparation to engage the process. So in order to have the impact, we need to be part of this process to have the ecotourism, successful ecotourism, to have the impact in sustainable development of the protected areas. Which are the main objectives of our research? Is first of all is to stress out the education and awareness for the community and young generation to protect the values of nature. And second, the importance of promoting ecotourism values for preservation and sustainable development. Methods and tools, we choose as methods and stakeholder analysis. As I mentioned before, we need to identify, first of all, the stakeholders to see their perception and to evaluate and to rank their opinion. We made some field surveys, qualitative methods and quantitative methods. We made some questionnaires, breakdown interviews until now, because we need also to make more interviews with local community and visitors in the park before the visit and after the visit. What changes related to their perception and their opinion. Which are the main problems of the protected areas related to the education and ecotourism? In Albania, and especially in this park, we have lack of environmental and cultural education. And in high school, in secondary school, we don't have any module for the kids or for the pupils. One module related to the environmental education. We have lack of infrastructure. Also, we have a mismanagement of budget. What means in Albania the municipality is focused in profit, economic profit, even though the agency of park is focused to the to protect the environmental. So they have a conflict between them, and all the activities that are that they can be there, for example, hiking, some educational purposes, some recreative game. All of the money goes to the municipality and not to the agency of park. And also we have ignorance and importance of the park's value. They don't, most of the people that they live in the park, they didn't know what is the importance of park, and some of them, they didn't know what is the park. When we asked them, what is the park for you? They said, 60% of them, they said, park is forest, park is natural park, and just that. And we have also the presence of massive tourism, because the massive tourism is present, and it's a very big problem for the protected areas in Albania, and they give a lot of negative impact in environmental. So our study site is located in eastern of Albania, is in cross-border area of Albania and North Macedonia. So our part in Albania is the surface is related to the 33,980 hectares. It's a national park related to the USNA category, and it's a candidate emerald site. This park has a lot of importance related to the flora and fauna and for the local community. Some discussion, because I need to respect the time. As I mentioned before, most of the population, they didn't know they live in the park, what is the importance of the park, especially the group ages 45 to 60, they didn't know what is the profit of the park. They said we have some restriction. And the importance of Shebenik Blanis Park, there are some perspectives in these protected areas for circular economy, for ecotourism, for mountain tourism, for local development, to give them the opportunity to develop their local product and to promote, and why not to create a brand of this park. The 5 main capitals that are in this park, such as human capital, social capital, natural capital, physical and financial capital, related to the education and awareness of the local community. Of course, we need to develop human capital and social capital, that are 2 of them that are very important to change their mentality and so on. Some conclusion and recommendation: landscape and environmental preservation through the education and raising awareness of the local community for the importance of their landscape and the area that they are living there. Ecotourism promotion by integrating culture and natural values. Communication and education components of park management could be strengthened by establishing long-term education program, by setting up an informative nature center and educational game for the children, for the local community, and why not for the educational purpose and for the research purpose. Local awareness committees. It means to bringing together a number of civil society actors, could be established and become a permanent entity, and link through format channels to the park management. And it's necessary to have the better collaboration between different level of actors if we need to have a better management, if we need to have a sustainable development for the local community, but in general, for all the people, we need to collaborate. And thank you very much for your attention, and I'm open for any question.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Davko, for your interesting presentation on the values of preservation of the national parks while developing ecotourism and other branches that conform with the eco strategies in Albania, and also we can learn a lot on this issue about such strategies that can be implied in other countries, including Bulgaria. We also have a lot of national parks and diversity of biological resources, and I hope that we can collaborate on these issues. Our next speaker will be Ksenia Smolovic from the University of Domai Varus, and she will present her talk on 3D digital study material and barriers in education. Please.
Once again, I would like to say that I'm deeply grateful for provided opportunity. Greetings from Montenegro, greetings from Hungary. So my topic is 3D digital study material, as you can see, which is originally part of my thesis research, which I needed in Hungary in order to reach that point of thesis defense, final exam, and graduation. So I would start this with a question. With the outbreak of COVID-19, we needed to adapt to changes in education, but no one asks us if we need changes, if we are ready for them. But what if we really get the possibility to change something in education? Will we do it or no? If yes, why yes? If no, why not? And if yes, in which direction will we go? This would probably be my direction. So for the presentation overview or the outline, I will have introduction part, modern literature, research methodology, research findings, conclusion, and sources. So for the introduction part, probably if you go now on Google and search for the definition of 3D digital study material, the possibility that you will find many definitions which are referring to 3D digital study material as teaching aids, visual aids, additional tools, rather than new category of study material is really high. So my main interest or focus of the research was to prove that this category, after recognition in the modern literature, can have positive aspects on 3 segments of teaching learning process, which are comprehension, motivation, and academic success. Here you can see a 3D model of a bacterial cell, and at the same time you can see what is 3D model, traditional one of bacterial cell. When it comes to traditional 3D material for the differentiation and making clear line, I put samples of specimen and diorama. For the specimen, it's frog's foot. Maybe it's one of the first recognized specimens, which is today a science museum group in the United Kingdom, but from 19th century, to be more precise, 1857, when British surgeon Joseph Listener was examining inflation in frog's body. And as a sample of diorama, nativity scene, which is really common and was especially common during my childhood period, that during Christmas days we could get with the magazine that nativity scene, so we could make on our own diorama with characters of the Bible. When it comes to modern 3D study material, you can see here how the seashell looks in 3D space, digital one, and the sea ecosystem. But once again, we have many issues, starting with insufficient knowledge, insufficient research works, and so on. So my main goal is to have recognition of 3D digital study material and to prove that it can have positive impact or can affect positively 3 aspects. So modern literature back to origins, we have 3 main moments or milestones. So you can see at the very beginning, 2003 outbreak of severe acute respiratory syndrome or SARS. In the museum, Singapore Art Museum, we have a 3D protein roller coaster. It's aiming for people to understand in an innovative way the structure of virus molecule. After 2 years, China, to be precise, in Chinese Science and Technology Museum, the first game for in-depth learning was developed. So the concept was the same with the 3D protein roller coaster, but at the same time it was connected with Chinese wall, and you can ride virtual motorbike through the Chinese wall and 3D protein roller coaster. And the dates for the third milestone can be really different, but the most correct one, I would say that it's from 2007, because at that period, Hua Chong Institution and Chinese High School in cooperation with Singapore and Singapore Ministry of Education developed first virtual reality classroom. So basically students could learn about geography, and geography lessons they could fly virtually over Victoria Falls in Africa. You could see the statement of Singapore Ministry of Education, but basically we need to recognize this in-depth learning to be active part of modernized, globalized world. So shortly, my main hypothesis, as I said 2 times already, is that I wanted to prove that this category can have positive impact on 3 aspects of teaching learning process: comprehension, motivation, and academic performance or academic success. Here are just some samples of the question in the process of development of a survey. Also, some important data related to the research. Combined approach, which means both qualitative and quantitative. Design cross-sectional, which means that it happened at a certain point of the time. Data from 170 survey respondents or participants and 6 interviewees, and method survey and interview. Here is how in type form the survey looked like. Some main data or findings. So first of all, about the term 3D digital study material, majority of the participants, or 61, were not sure about the actual meaning of 3D digital study material. For the second one, types of learners, I think it's very important in order to make any change in education to be able to identify if you have in the classroom either visual learners, auditory learners, kinesthetic, or combined. So in my case, the majority stated that they're visual learners. Also for the experience, I wanted people to single out 3 categories they came across during educational process. The most popular are digital presentations, models, characters, and mock-ups. As a conclusion, for what it can be motivation for me can at the same time be a reason for better comprehension of someone else, but I would say that generally 3D digital study material can provide people personalized view, than seeing or observing certain structure from different angles, visualizing complex ideas, which can be really beneficial for mechanical engineering students and so on. Also, by time developing e-learning communities and so on. That will lead to better academic performance. And something which really shocked me is from the interview with one interviewee, he stated that technology in education is rich people benefit. Government is responsible for education in the country, and if it cannot recognize or see educational sphere as somewhere where the money should go, it says enough about the country, and I couldn't agree more on that one. Here are some also important information regarding the presentation and partly research. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope it will work. And that's just logo of the university for clarification. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Smolovic. This was really a very insightful presentation about the 3 digital study materials and the impact that it may have on the learning process. For me, as a teacher, I believe that the students would like very much to have such materials, no matter what field of study, whether it is engineering or medicine, biology, geography, or other topics, including arts and culture. I'm confident that it will be really very helpful. So let us hope that we will have such resources in the future. Now I shall invite Professor Cvetan Davidkov with his speech on dialogue between cultures. Is it possible? This is cooperative research with Professor Albena Vucova. Please.
Чува се с микрофон. Тъй като не съм сигурен в моя английски, аз ще говоря на български, като моля да ме извинят колегите, които в момента не разбират, но доколкото текстовете ще бъдат публикувани на английски, се надявам тогава да проведем нашия диалог. В някакъв смисъл съм улеснен от факта, че колегата Соколова, с която имахме общ текст, представи част от идеите, които ще се опитам да развия по-нататък. За какво става въпрос? Всички доклади до тук вероятно са един възможен отговор на въпроса, възможен ли е диалог между културите. И въпреки това този диалог не е безпроблемен и ще насоча вниманието към аспекти на възможния диалог, които го правят проблемен, но за сметка на това пък, поставяйки тези въпроси, ние имаме възможност да го направим диалога по-продуктивен. Когато тук говорим за култури, аз имам предвид така наречената култура от втори ред, използвам терминология на Херд Хофстеде. Тоест, културата разбирана като начин на мислене, като менталитет, като използвам неговия термин, софтуер на ума. Защо правя тази оговорка? Защото култура е общо научен термин. Има десетки различни определения за култура, така че тук говорим за начин, преди всичко за начин на мислене. Когато говорим за междукултурен диалог, се появява едно огромно море, защото междукултурният диалог може да се води, ако изобщо е диалог на различни равнища, с различни средства, резултатите да бъдат различни. Аз ще спестя тук подробностите и твърдим, че когато разсъждаваме върху възможностите за междукултурен диалог, трябва да имаме предвид поне две групи предпоставки. Едното са онтологичните предпоставки. Диалогът съществува, защото съществуват общности, които могат да бъдат дефинирани и като културни, защото има евентуално взаимност или интерес на едната общност към другата общност. Тоест всичко онова, което е независимо от нашите познавателни възможности и начина, по който познаваме, може да бъде отнесено към тези онтологични предпоставки. И по-трудният, според нас, въпрос е свързан с познавателните предпоставки, доколкото самия процес на познанието е противоречив. И аз ще се опитам да покажа, че този процес наистина е противоречив и някои групи трудности и противоречия, свързани с взаимното опознаване между културите. Познато-непознато. Всяко ново познато в някакъв смисъл е отрицание на познатото до този момент. Ние говорим за проблеми в познанието като нарушаване на един апарат, чрез който овладяваме света, и преминаване към друг апарат, чрез който овладяваме света. Когато осъзнаваме факта на противоречивия характер на познанието и твърдим нещо, в момента, в който го докажем, ние вече сме в състояние да се откажем от едно твърдение и да преминем към друго твърдение, защото това е едно ново равнище на познание, което е отрекло нещо до тогава. Доста проблеми са свързани с обективни характеристики на културните общности, които ние изследваме. 16 плюс 1, а не 17 към 0. Имаме ли тук проблема за изключителната единица и отсреща 16-те в някакъв смисъл неравностойни? Това, че един език е разпространен сред милиард а друг език е разпространен след 10 милиона, да речем, проблем ли е при диалога на културите? Когато една малка култура, малка с или без кавички, показва своята значимост, тя често използва такива примери. Ако Радичков беше писал на английски, то вероятно, ако Радичков беше писал на китайски, то вероятно, но Радичков е писал на български. От тук имаме ли проблем от тези обективни характеристики? По-нататък имаме страшно много оценъчни нагласи, които могат да подкрепят диалога, но също така могат да затруднят диалога. Когато ние изследваме диалога между културите, често наблюдаваме явлението културен шок. Запознавайки се с логика или културни практики, нещо за мен е неприемливо. Малко е да кажа нетипично, неприемливо. Това бариера ли е или е стимул за любопитство? Или пък друг тип нагласи. Тъй като ние имаме страшно много контексти. Ние имаме икономически и геоикономически контексти, политически, геополитически, военни, общо цивилизационни и така нататък. В зависимост от нашето обяснение и ориентация в света, кого възприемаме за приятел, кого не възприемаме за приятел, и тъй като тези контексти наистина са доста сложни, можем да ги продължим. Приятелите на моите приятели са мои приятели, враговете на моите приятели са мои врагове. Къде попадат двете култури в логиката на тези нагласи и контексти? Още един потенциален проблем. Когато говорим за диалог между култури, ние всъщност за какво говорим? аз, представител на една култура, формирам, изучавам друга култура по какъв начин? Имам личен опит с студенти от Китай, имам опосредствен опит, тъй като разказвали са ми хора, които са били или чета определени книги. Аз всъщност културата ли опознавам или познавам някакви сегменти и по какъв начин от тези сегменти генерализирам и създавам цялостната картина. В този смисъл, вероятно, това опознаване винаги е непълно, винаги е фрагментарно и стои въпроса, когато аз познавам едно фрагментче, то колко е представително за голямото. Ако аз отида в Европа, там преди мен са минали други мои сънародници и не са се представили по добър начин, когато аз отида там, опита на тези хора се пренася върху мен като представител на държава и култура. Това продуктивно ли е или не е продуктивно? Или аз давам ли си сметка, че по частичката не мога безпроблемно да съдя за цялото и за голямото? Колеги, спирам до тук и със съзнанието, че това е последно изказване. Колегата Соколова подчерта, че въз основа на подходи на културната антропология ние сме в състояние да сравняваме по какъв начин хора, които принадлежат към различен софтуер на ума, решават едни и същи въпроси и чрез сравняването на тези подходи да научаваме повече един за друг. Аз обаче ще направя още една крачка напред. Надя говори за индекси по Хофстеде, индекс на индивидуализъм, индекс на властово разстояние, power distance, индекс на избягване на несигурност, може би за това тя не е говорила и за това ще се спра именно тук. Между другото, това е един популярен подход за сравнително изучаване на културите. В този подход на Хофстеде обикновено се използват 5 измерителя: властово разстояние, избягване на несигурност, индивидуализъм спрямо колективизъм, мъжествено спрямо женственост, дългосрочна ориентация спрямо краткосрочна ориентация. Каква е познавателната логика? Има смисъл да измерваме тези индекси, защото те са евристични, т.е. дават ни познания. В презентацията на колегата Соколова тя показа как чрез тенденциите към високи или ниски стойности на някои от тези индекси ние насочваме вниманието си какво би трябвало да наблюдаваме като явление или като норми, или като начин на мислене, или като практики в тези общности. Тук обаче има нещо още. Всеки от тези индекси се смята въз основа на. Ето в този индекс, да речем, за избягване на несигурност, ние имаме 3 емпирични индикатора. Какви са тези 3 опитно установими неща? Ами първото е равнище на стрес, второто е дали хората се обвързват дълготрайно или краткосрочно със своята организация, каква е логиката. Ако аз се обвързвам дългосрочно с организацията, вероятно аз повече се стремя да избягвам несигурни ситуации. Защо? Защото ме е страх от новото, различното и така нататък. И третия емпирично установим факт, това е ориентацията към спазване на правила. В културите, при които има нисък толеранс, а това ще рече силен стремеж да се избягват несигурни ситуации, хората се нуждаят чисто интуитивно от повече инструкции, повече правила. Защо? Защото действието в условията на несигурност се преживява стресово, плашещо, страхувам се да не сбъркам. А антитезата каква е? Хората, които преживяват несигурните ситуации като възможност за ново знание, като възможност да решат самостоятелно как да действат и така нататък, В такива случаи хората не се нуждаят от много и детайлни правила, а се нуждаят от най-общи ориентири. За това служат правилата. И така, когато на повърхността имаме България с висока стойност по индекса избягване на несигурност, а Китай с ниска стойност, ние имаме основания да се запитаме въз основа на какви стойности на тези съставни измерители, а именно стрес, равнище на стрес, обвързване с организацията и съответно ориентация към спазване на правила се получават тези стойности. Между другото, и вероятно с това ще завърша, когато забележим, че две страни имат относително еднакви стойности по един и същи индикатор, типично за България и Китай, това е властовото разстояние, подчертано високи стойности на индекса за избягване на несигурност, всъщност за едно и също говорим или говорим за различни неща. Какво имам предвид? Ами, имам предвид, че аз и вие можем да твърдим едно и също, но с коренно различни аргументи. Така че това е едно предупреждение. Когато открием нещо сходно, ние да не бързаме да го обявяваме за общо, а да се питаме еднаква ли е логиката, чрез която е стигнала едната култура до това и логиката, чрез която друга култура е стигнала до това. Още едно предупреждение, в културната антропология обикновено му казват принцип за културна относителност. Какъв е принципът за културна относителност? Ами да се въздържаме, да оценяваме факти, действия, наблюдавано в друга култура, ако не сме част от тази култура. Какъв е смисъла на този принцип на културната относителност? Ами нещата, които са в рамките на посветени части от културата, могат да не носят същия смисъл, като за непосветените. В този смисъл изглежда здравословно този принцип да бъде спазван, а когато се изказват някакви съждения, включително оценъчни, ние да имаме винаги различни форми на обратна връзка, за да разберем дали нашето предположение или нашето твърдение от гледна точка на носителите на дадената култура е окей или не е окей. И последното, с което бих завършил, има познавателно значение така наречения принцип за кръгов характер на културите. Този принцип първо се извежда като принцип за кръгов характер на ценностите. Когато ние характеризираме една общност в категория от типа на индивидуализъм, колективизъм, мъжествено, женственост, те изглеждат като крайни точки на една и съща скала. И когато кажем за някого или за група хора, че са с индивидуалистична насоченост, ние едва ли не им отричаме характеристиката, те да бъдат част от общности, да си уважават общностите, да имат общностно чувство. Двама автори, това са Хемптън Търнър и Тром Пернарс, които също имат различим подход към културите, в книгата си "Седемте култури на капитализма", разсъждават върху този кръгов характер на ценностите и горе-долу казват следното. Не ви съветваме да лепите етикети. И когато кажете, че някой е индивидуалистично ориентиран, вие да му отричате всичко, което е свързано с неговата или нейната принадлежност. А Хофстеде казва, да кажем, че някой е по-скоро индивидуалист, не означава нищо друго, освен, че когато разсъждава върху скалата или дилемата индивидуализъм спрямо колективизъм, има голяма вероятност той да започне да разсъждава от индивидуализма и оттам да отиде към колективизма. Когато кажем за някой, че е комунално или колективно ориентиран, това не означава, че той не си знае интереса, че не си преследва интереса или че е всичко, което приписваме на един индивидуалист, а Хофстеде казва, най-вероятно това означава, че когато той разсъждава върху тази дилема, ако това е дилема, той ще започне от колективизма и ще стигне до индивидуализма. Възможно ли е този принцип за кръговия характер на ценностите да бъде познавателен инструмент и да го пренесем към тезата за кръгов характер на културите? Какво имам предвид? Твърдим, че сравняваме, или по-скоро твърдим, че всички хора във всяко време решават едни и същи важни въпроси. От тази гледна точка, дали не можем да използваме този кръгов характер и да кажем, сравнявайки по какъв начин хората с различен софтуер на ума решават едни и същи въпроси, ние от една страна научаваме повече за културата, която не е нашата, а оглеждайки се в нея, ние научаваме повече за собствената си култура, защото често там се проблематизират неща, които не се проблематизират при мен. В момента, в известната ни ситуация, като говорим за колективен Запад, Евразия и прочие, срещам публикации, в които се твърди, да речем, че в културите на колективния Запад, ако това е коректно, култури на колективния Запад, доста повече се залага на технологиите, оттам и на образованието, което на английски обозначаваме с sciences, че в източните култури, ако изобщо е коректно това название източни култури, доста повече внимание се обръща на човешко развитие, личностно израстване и така нататък, духовност, неща, които обозначаваме като група науки или познания с arts. Възможно ли е на база на този тип акценти отново да използваме идеята за кръговия характер на ценностите и културите, за да постигаме по-дълбоко познание? Благодаря ви.
Thank you, Professor Davidkov, okay, thanks, for your inspiring presentation on the intercultural dialogue and the aspects in which this dialogue may face potential problems or challenges and how to cope with these things seen from cognitive point of view and ontological point of view, and the different approaches that you talked about, the circular identity of cultures, and the relativity of every judgment and labeling in culture. Now it's time to invite our last speaker, Mr. Vladimir Yurdanov, with his presentation on the topic of internationalization of the higher education sector in Bulgaria, opportunities to develop transnational education projects between Bulgaria and China. Please.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, I know it's been a long day, and certainly I personally learned quite a lot from you, and I'm very grateful for the fact that you presented loads of useful and interesting information. My aim will be to share a bit more practical topic on partnerships between the higher education sector in Bulgaria and China, but really in the prospect of those partnerships being able to be implemented elsewhere. I personally, I'm part of the higher education team of the NGO company Education for Everybody, which is a Bulgarian company, and some of my colleagues are here today also with me, but I'm privileged to present the presentation, the information to you. And our company has been operating in the past 2-3 years really to promote higher education in Bulgaria, outside of Bulgaria to other countries, but in this context, of course, with projects with China and Chinese universities and higher education institutions. Now, I know for some of you, this topic might not be so much familiar, the so-called TNE. I had the privilege to work for more than 10 years in higher education institutions in the United Kingdom. And so in the past 2-3 years, when I've decided to start helping more Bulgarian universities with this topic, I wanted to bring, along with my colleagues working with me in our NGO, the topic of TNE, or the so-called transnational education. And the reason being is because some of the partnerships we have even discussed today, for example, with the Confucius Institute, which my colleague Goran very well explained in the context, or Nadia shared information regarding online teaching, digitalization, digital learning, etc., etc. This one here is somewhere in the middle, but offering a bit more practical approach to such partnerships. Our company, as I said, operating in Bulgaria, and what we are trying to do is exactly sharing this experience which we've learned throughout the years, seeing it in other countries, mainly UK, Australia, and the US, and how we can implement this sort of strategy also here in Bulgaria and also in the region. So, in terms of partnerships and way of partnering, it's really like we have discussed, and I heard in some of the previous presentations about 3D and how this could be implemented within the educational system. Such partnerships are also inevitable, and I think they are the future for us, because on one hand, I do understand that the standard typical partnerships we've been used to, such as mobility, or exchange of staff or students, of course, they will stay and remain and probably continue to develop. But other sort of partnerships are also here for us to learn and use, and they can help us, and especially the institutions we represent, and enhance the curriculum, research, and also portfolio of products those universities involved in such partnerships can offer. And of course, nevertheless, education, one way or another, could bring revenues. We all know about different ways of doing that. Again, research, exchange, projects, but nevertheless, such partnerships could also help universities, especially in the region, like Sofia University, for example, to find ways to help other institutions, other students to come and study here, but at the same time, this to benefit culturally and financially the institution. Now, talking about internationalization, some of the data me and my colleagues from Education for Everybody, we put out from you. As you can see, of course, mobility now should reach, according to some data, 6.1 million by 2025, which is, of course, global mobility number. But within this number, again, we include many sort of different mobilities, not just the standard exchange programs we are used to. And of course, such partnerships and the internationalization of the higher education can help, especially in the region, with cultural and language ties, education initiatives, and also to help with, unfortunately, the tendencies of reducing of our population. Here in Bulgaria, we are unfortunate to see some of the last data showing that we are now below 7 million, which is of course a bit disturbing. And I think through partnerships and bringing international students from countries such as China or others will help to kind of close this gap, because the idea is if they come here to study, to learn either language or study a whole program, they of course will have the aim to remain for indefinite time and contribute towards the local economy, the social life, and everything else. Also, we can say that over 4,000 Bulgarian students are currently studying Chinese language and Chinese culture through the so-called Confucius Institutes, of course. And one of the reasons we are in a strong position here in Bulgaria and the region is because other countries, let's say in the West, and I'm going to give you the example of the UK. Unfortunately, the UK has recently announced, and the new Prime Minister there, that they will close most likely all of their Confucius Institutes, which they've created for the past decade. And again, we all know that's more political than anything else, because I'm sure there are no certain evidences that those institutes are somehow harming the students and the people wishing to study the language or the culture. And using this, I think we should use this as an advantage to show appreciation for the fact that we have the opportunity to study Chinese language like many other languages, and this is something which can actually help us and contribute towards strengthening those relationships for us. So TNE is one way to certainly help in this direction, and I'm sure this will happen in the next few years. Talking about student mobility, more data we can see here. Of course, the pandemic somehow disrupted this, and that's normal because, unfortunately, even nowadays in China, they're still unable to travel as they used to be before the pandemic. However, we can see that mobility is growing, and Chinese students will be certainly looking to continue their traveling and continue their interest of studying abroad, whether they will come for one semester or they will come for a whole program, whether this program will be blended, online learning and face-to-face learning. This is something we have to identify, but certainly the mobility will be here to stay, and I'm sure our Chinese colleagues and partners will be interested and will continue to be interested in this direction. Now, some of the typical TNE partnerships, perhaps for some of you, if you're not familiar, you could see here, and I've been privileged to participate in many such partnerships, by the way, involving UK universities, universities in China, in Pakistan, in South Asia, but also in Europe, a lot in Poland, a lot in Central Europe, and I'm keen with my colleagues to bring more happening also between Bulgarian institutions such as Sofia University, which is one of the most sort of open-minded universities for such partnerships, thankfully, and we are working with them very closely to bring more such programs, which of course the whole idea here is to be taught in English, and not because Bulgarian language is not nice but it's just difficult to learn. And for our Chinese colleagues and our Chinese friends, if they can study in English, but of course still be based here, I think this will be beneficial for them, and they inevitably will learn the Bulgarian language one way or another. So such partnerships could inform double degrees, so one degree issued by Sofia University, for example, and another degree issued by a Chinese institution, or the so-called validation programs where Chinese and Bulgarian institutions are validating their curriculum and their credits, and so they offer again combined studies to students in China. There is another option also, which is so-called micro hub, which this one actually is a hybrid mode and involves online plus face-to-face. So some of the students in China, especially during those uncertain times of COVID, they can start their education in China, and after a certain period of time, could be 2 or 3 years, depending on how the institutions will agree on. They can then come here for their final year or 2 of studies, and they can get, again, a hybrid education delivered by 2 institutions at the same time. Because inevitably, technologies will continue to develop and grow, and we need to use them in the best possible way for the purposes of teaching and higher education, and education in general. Now, one of the projects we have developed along with Sofia University, as I was saying, is the so-called Sino-Foreign project, where that's exactly what we have been trying to establish with the Faculty of Economics and Management, with the Dean. We've discussed this many times, and the faculty is very supportive, which is really truly grateful, because I'm glad to see that one university and in particular faculty understands the need of such partnerships and the positiveness of such partnerships for the university and for the faculty. So at the moment, we are developing with some partners, some higher education institutions in China, such curricula where they will start their education in China. The programs will be mapped initially, and then after some time, most likely the first 3 years spent in China, they will come and finish their bachelor degree here in Sofia University, studying 1 or 2 years, depending on the credits and the way we agree. But also during those 3 years, lecturers from Sofia Universities will travel to China, or online, depending on what is available. They will teach those Chinese students in China, and so they will not be completely distinguished from what Sofia University is offering and providing for that period of time. So this is, in my opinion, a true partnership which offers a global education. And to be honest with you, this English universities, British universities, American universities, they have been doing this for many years, and this certainly helps them to increase their portfolio of partners and also to contribute towards their internationalization and contributes towards their financial to finance their projects. One case study I have for you, which I think it's interesting to share quickly, is a so-called Project 3000, which wasn't done in particular between Chinese universities and universities here in Europe, but this one in particular was completed from the Latvian Ministry, and the Latvian Ministry actually of Economics is supporting this one with UK universities' involvement and American universities' involvement. But this could be easily implemented between few Bulgarian universities and Chinese universities, because the whole idea is to bring students which will study programs initially agreed on, and on the curriculum as well, and they will study certain programs which will then contribute towards those students' knowledge in certain particular areas which they can use either if they stay here and work in Bulgaria or they go back to China, because the topic of IT and the lack of, as you know, IT professionals is widely problematic everywhere. And so if we are able to create such partnerships in the way they've done it in Latvia quite recently, and I was luckily part of this project, we could certainly fill some of the industrial gaps we are seeing here, but also in China, because again, those students will have a recognized degree which they can use going back to their own country and of course benefit from it. Finally, some conclusions from my side. So contributing to national success through enhancement of knowledge and skills, this is something we have to try and support. But all of this, which I'm talking now, it's not going to be possible if the state itself is more involved. I have to say that what I've seen in countries like Poland, Latvia, actually is quite great in the way they are using their universities and the support from the state to achieve this internationalization, and they've done it in the past 5 years. So I'll be very, very happy to see the Bulgarian authorities and the politicians here to get more involved and to provide the necessary tools for the universities like Sofia University to use in order for those projects to be implemented in a much more straightforward and transparent way, with less sort of administration and documents and all this stuff, which of course makes the whole process a lot more complicated. Certainly, such projects will contribute to the employability and revenue. So employability of the students studying those programs, revenue for the universities involved in this project. Of course, it will also contribute to the capacity building and leading to more teaching and academic administrative staff to be involved, to be exchanged. So Chinese professors will come here to Sofia University to learn and be part of those dual degree programs, but Bulgarian professors from Sofia University as well will go to China and will be able to teach there and be involved in those programs. Again, thank you for your listening, and I'm one more time grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yordanov, for your really very interesting talk on the issues of internationalization of higher education in Bulgaria, and giving us examples of new projects for international cooperation in the field of higher education between Bulgaria and China. So now it is time for discussion. Are there any questions on the topics and presentations that we've heard from our speakers? So please, the floor is yours.
I think we can better discuss
Online?
A glass of wine.
Ah, with a glass of wine. Everyone prefers, obviously everyone prefers that kind of discussion with a glass of wine. Probably you have questions?
Sorry, but I have a very quick question for Mr. Yordanov about this hub system. So the idea is that the Chinese students are starting to learn online in the Bulgarian institution. And how is the problem with the time difference? How you resolve this problem? Because we had this problem during our common project with our Chinese partner, and we started at 9 a.m. and there was 3 p.m. And they had very strong time limit for the session. And the second question about the internet connection. It's terribly difficult. They have another system for created links and not always compatible with Zoom and I know things we use every day. So just very shortly, if possible. Thank you.
So the whole idea is, I think, because there are different models, of course, how we can do that. But one of the models, actually, which we are discussing now with actually a associate professor Leomov from Faculty of Economics and Management, is for those, while the discussions are ongoing, Sofia University, of course, verifies through different sort of exchange and documentation the idea that the Chinese institution has the capacity in terms of professors and knowledge to lead on those lectures, and so they do the teaching most of the times. And only on certain occasions, Sofia University gets involved. So there are two ways of doing this. So most of the teaching is done by our colleagues in China on initially agreed curriculum. But when Sofia University needs to get involved, of course they agree on a specific day and tools to use. So it's not going to be every week or 2 times per week. It's going to be maybe once per month. So this is one way to do that. Another way is for every semester, one of the lecturers for the particular topics to be in China when traveling is more possible. Of course, now in China, as we know, it's more difficult. They go there for 2 weeks, and teaching of specific modules which are related to Sofia University, because remember, the whole program will be co-designed and co-approved between the two institutions. So some of the modules will be originally taught by our Chinese colleagues, but they will be approved by Sofia University, because Sofia University will at the end issue the degree at the same time. But other modules will be only taught by Sofia University, and Sofia University can, again, send someone to do it for 2 extensive weeks, once per semester. Chinese colleagues, of course, covering the cost, and this is part of the agreement. Or if it's done online, it could be once or twice per month on an agreed time when students will know that because of the time difference, maybe they have to stay and be available in a more unusual time for them. So it's all about the initial discussions, and that's why the project management before anything is signed is so important. And sometimes it takes between 12 and 18 months for such collaboration to be agreed on. Thank you.
Thank you. So, any other questions? Probably me, myself, I also have a question to our last speaker, Mr. Yordanov. I just wanted to ask about that project with the Faculty of Economy. Is it already implemented? And if yes, for how long time it is going on?
Officially, the discussions are ongoing. For most of you who dealt with China one way or another, you know that things are not happening from today and fast. Today we discuss something, tomorrow it's already done. It takes more time because this project is more or less innovative in the sense that no other Bulgarian university actually has been involved exactly in such type of project. Again, this is different from typical mobility. So such a program must go through the Ministry of Education in China and get the approval. Now we've had the new elections, but actually we have the same person elected again. Now, since this is done, I think those institutions will again start functioning, and this partnership more or less has been agreed, the principles have been agreed, but the approval might take another few months. Once it's done, the piloting program will be actually coming from the Faculty of Economy and Management again. So because you have programs in English which are of interest for the Chinese colleagues. Again, they will not study in Bulgarian, they will study in English, because otherwise it might be very difficult, of course, for them to do. So hopefully officially it will be approved in the next few months.
Okay, let's hope so. Thank you. Other questions, please? If we don't have any other questions, then we can close our last session for today and wish you all good evening and see you tomorrow probably. Goodbye.
If I may say just one more thing. I promise I won't take too much of your time. We are organizing a tour in Sofia, and it's supposed to be for 6 p.m. Everybody in this room is invited. So if you want to check out the landmarks of the city you're currently in,